Welcome to the Joomla Chat conference. I'm delighted to have Eoin back with us again this year. He's going to be talking about A/B testing with Joomla in order to maximize the revenue from your site. Eoin is a real bundle of energy in the UK Joomla community and is responsible for a lot of the good stuff that the Joomla user group is doing in London. Eoin, welcome.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks everyone for turning up as well. So today I'm going to talk about how to make more money with split testing. So the tools we're going to use is going to be Google Optimize, Google Analytics, and Google Tag Manager. So I'll start with a bit about myself. I'm Eoin Oliver from London. I run a small web development agency, Square Balloon. I've worked with Joomla for over 10 years, and as Steve said, I'm a frequent attender of Joomla London. I just missed George, or else I'd have heckled him quite a lot. So that's me doing a presentation telling people a bit about stats one day, which probably bored some of them, as you can see by the front guy. So A/B testing, why should you do it? It's quite a lot of work. Here's some of the reasons. So quite a lot of time, it increases customer loyalty. They see that you're pulling for them and you're trying to improve their website, and it means they don't decide to go with someone else. So nobody's coming up in the background and saying, hey, do you know what, I can do a better job. Customers respect you more because they see that you're an expert in your field, and they understand that they listen to you more. So it has a fringe benefit that you don't have to argue back and forth quite so much. And the customers make more money, and if customers are making more money, then they're happy to spend money on making more money, so you make more money. But at the end of the day, we're here as a marketing product really with websites, so we should be making them money. So I do have a word of warning. Firefox does not play that well with Google Optimize, so you should use Google Chrome if I was you. And also you have to be very careful with, there's an on-screen editor you can use with Optimize, but you have to be a bit careful with it. But I'll talk you through it a bit more when we get to that point. So let's get started. But if anyone wants to follow along, you can. You just need to unmute and let me know. But you need to have your Google Analytics open and your Google Tag Manager open and create a Google Optimize account. So I'm going to just flick off my PowerPoint for now and go into my Google Chrome. So this is Google Optimize. So if I go back to the front of it, you first need to create an account. I won't do this. I'll just use the one I've got set up. But you can see here you've got your container ID. You're going to need that at some point to put in your Google Tag Manager. So once you create your account, you go through to the next screen. You have an opportunity here to create tests, basically containers. So if I click through to the container, I've just given it a name the same as the domain. And here's where you create your tests or experiences. So there's a few different types. A/B test, which is also known as an ABN test. So that is testing one URL versus another URL. You've got your multivariate tests, so that would be testing multiple things on the same page. So you could be changing a heading and an image, and on the next page you could have a different heading on the same image, and the next page you could have the same heading but a different image, so you're testing a few different things at once. It's more complicated. A redirect test I haven't ever done, but it's web pages by URL. Personalization allows you to change certain parts of a page, and this banner thing they've just added for COVID is the main reason I've seen it used. But let's go as an A/B test for now. I'll just use, I normally just put the domain, but I've already used that. So I'll just do an example name here. So one thing to know about this is it's based on URLs. So if we go to, I'll just log into, in fact, I may need to, oh, there it is, cool. So if on this website, I'm using Gantry 5. So I'll show you the example that I've done. So I've got my default, which has just got this layout. And if you look, you will see the footer A is on the left and footer C is on the right. And then for my experiment, which I've just did another outline, I've just got footer C on the left and footer A on the right. So to show you in practice what we're looking at, so it's come up now with the optimize icon here, which means we're looking at it in that view. But what you'll see is the footer has just got a form on the left and some other pages on the right. So we're just switching those two things around to test whether more people would fill it in on the left or right. It's a pretty simple test. Because of the way Joomla works, it's easy to do because I go to my main menu and I just create a second menu item. Obviously, you need to hide that. So when I go to link type and display menu, I set that to no. But so that now doesn't display in the front end, which is what we want. But obviously, that's the easiest way to build two different URLs, which are very similar in Joomla. So it's just duplicate the menu item. So now you know what that test does. Let me just talk you through how we set that up. So if I go back to the green energy electrical one, and this one here, we have the footer test with the redirect. And this is already running as well, so you can see it. And this is basically based on the URL. So you can see here, here's the two URLs. There's the original one and the footer one. And the weight is 50-50, so half the people are going to be shown each one. And it is targeted when the URL matches the homepage. So when the homepage is hit, it will choose which one of these to show, basically. The next thing it wants you to do is link it to your Google Analytics, or else you won't really have much of an experiment. And the next thing is you set an objective. So in this case, the best thing to do is to set up your goals in Google Analytics. So I'm not going to go through a whole Google Analytics tutorial, but if you go and set up your goals there, you can choose them in Google Optimize. So this one is basically a simple goal, which is a contact form has been filled in, and Google Analytics used it. I've also done, you can check the installation. When you do it at this point, if you're setting up for the first time, it won't work because you haven't installed the optimized code yet. So if I just, I'll take you back through the other one I was doing just so you can see that process basically. Where did we do this one? So if we go through here, right, so we would come through down here, we'd have to link the analytics, which is done already. Now we would choose from a list. This brings up our goals from Google Analytics. So we'll just say the contact page because that's the most common one I use. In this case, I normally set the email notifications because if you have a really mad experiment where something goes crazy or stops working, then an email would be nice. And then you need to check the installation. This one is set up so it wouldn't work, but normally it would say that it doesn't work. So then what you need to go is go into your Google Tag Manager. So what you do is set up a new tag for Optimize. So I'll click on this one. It's pretty obvious which one to do. The container ID you need. So if I go back to, it's really not easy to find the ID from this screen. At least I haven't found out how to. But if you go back and then go back again, then you'll see the container ID here. And again, I don't really know the easy way to copy it. What I do is just inspect the element and then go in the source code and click it that way. So then I go back into my tag manager. I just paste it in there. I delete the spaces either side of it. And then there's not really much else to do on this particular part. So you can save it. And I normally just call it Google Optimize. And then it's gonna, so you can use a tracking ID. So I have my Google Analytics tracking set up as a constant. So it's got the GA number in there. So I use that. So I enable this one, click that, and then save it. Now there's no trigger, which is, you might think, unusual. So what we do is we go to Google Analytics to all page views, and then we edit this. What we need to do is go to the advanced part, advanced settings down here, and then we're looking for, here, you want to fire it before all page views. And then when you select this, then you can select your Google Optimize. So you need to make sure that it's firing before all page views, so before analytics fires, basically. So now you can save that, and that should work. Now, if we were to go, just set that up on a website actually. So why don't I create an account for that and show you that working properly. So I just did it on proper mod. So I just save things like this to make it easier for me to remember. It doesn't like a slash in there, so I will remove the beginning and the end. and then tick these 3 boxes, hit next, and I will do the same there. Again, I'll just keep it uniform. So now we go to let's go create the first experience, do an A/B test. I'll call it A/B test just for this purpose. And you need to put the URL of the page you'd like to use. It's called your editor page. Create that. And then add the variant. Call it home 2. See if it works this time. Interestingly, again, hasn't asked me for the URL. Okay, I need to work out why that is. That before asked me for a URL. Maybe it's changed somewhat. Anyway, I'll move past it because I really don't know why that is. Link to analytics, you just click the button. Here's my proper mod one, and then I'll choose my default view. Again, the objectives, I choose from list. I normally go in analytics and create these first. So if you are doing this, start with that. So this is any contact form being completed as a goal. You can choose other goals, obviously, but that's a simple one, which is quite common. Set the email. And if I check the installation, because I've set it up in Tag Manager, it should say that it's installed. Okay, so it's not found. I'll tell you what I've done. I forgot to push it. So if I now submit it and then give it. So now I publish that. So that's what I was saying previously about if you test it too early, it will say it's not there. So now I go back here and then retry. Optimize. Oh God, what's happened here? Oh, I need to do the correct tag, don't I? I think I did the wrong one. So go to my tags, go to my optimize, make sure I've got the right container ID. There you go, that was the wrong one. Sorry guys, a bit boring to watch me repeating myself. So now if I publish it again, hopefully it works, famous last words. So now if I go onto here and retry, you should see that it works, hopefully. Still not found. Okay, something for me to investigate. Gary, if you could pretend that that one works as well. That is how you do it, I promise you. I don't know what I've done wrong there. Maybe Tag Manager's not installed properly, but I will. But I promise you that's how it works. So I'll continue on the presentation anyway. So I guess the thing to do is to understand what to do and why to do it. So which page to test first would be the first thing you'd want to understand. So for e-commerce, you would 100% want to start with your cart page. And if it's a 4-step cart page, you would definitely want to start with the 4th step, because that person has put something in the basket, they're going through the process, they've entered their address or whatever it is, and now they're on the final step and they're just about to buy it and something goes wrong. How does this impact your existing events and page views? I can answer that at the end if that's all right, Gary. So if you're in the 4th step, they're so close to buying that whatever it is going to upset them at that point. If you can fix that, they're more likely to buy and you're more likely to get a sale directly from that action. After you've done that, you work your way back to the 3rd step and the 2nd step and the 1st step, because those people who are already in the cart are, both closest to buying intent. The next thing would be for normal websites. So it would be a contact page or a form. So if it's a contact page, obviously, again, they're about to interact with you. So it's a good opportunity to optimize that part of the page. Next thing I would do would be groups of pages. So if you're doing single articles, I would optimize all of the single articles at once, because if you do that, you're going to get the most gain at once rather than focusing on a single page, and all of like the category blogs as well. So if you're going to do that in Google Analytics, you would use a regex to target those things as a goal, to understand that you're improving click-throughs from a category blog to the article, for example. You would use a regex to understand that. And then you would go to your most popular pages. So I don't know what websites and services you guys have, but if you've got like a really important page that gets a lot more traffic than others, that's where you'd be optimizing for conversions and trying to work out how to really get the most out of that. Something you would overlook would be your thank you page. We've already done it. Somebody's done something and we've been thanking them. So your job's probably not done at that point. You can ask them to take another action. Can you like our social media? Can you do something else? Subscribe, whatever. Landing pages are perfect because if they've got an advert like Google Ads, for example, and you're directed to a landing page, you already spent the money getting them there. Now you should look at how you can get the most conversions out of that page. And then search results page. So again, it's an overlooked page, but they've taken some action. They're looking for something. And if the search doesn't find it, maybe something else can help them. But perhaps optimizing that page and making sure you get the maximum out of that. So not just pages, you can also do elements, so parts of pages. So your header of your page might have your contact number in it. Perhaps you want to check the position, the text color, perhaps the words surrounding it. Contact forms, this is another good one where you can look for long forms, loads of fields. Perhaps you just have less fields to see how many people fill it in. Perhaps you have different calls to actions. Perhaps the address is auto-populated by Google Maps or something like that, or from their email. Perhaps you auto-populate the email address from clicking through from an email marketing campaign. Trust factors are nearby. Contact copy nearby. You can test the trust factors themselves. Do you put more accreditations, less, awards, boasts? Where do you position them? All of those sorts of things. Testimonials. Do they rotate? Are they static? Do you have one? Do you have three? Do you put a picture? Do you use a video instead? Is it validated by a third party? So is that more trustworthy, or do they like the fully branded one that you usually use? Case studies and portfolios. So people will be looking at those with intent to buy, so a good thing to optimize if you can. And the last thing is to keep your customers delighted. So if you're asking people to join in a UX survey or something, you might need to offer them 10 or 50 quid or whatever you want to offer them to do it. But just watching 5 or 10 people go through the site and use it, you will find out a lot of things that don't work or break quite quickly. You don't need to have 100 people, just a small amount can do it. So worth looking at that to get ideas for your tests. So just come up with a hypothesis and theory and then test it and see if it works. You may not want to do 50-50 split. You might want to just do a 10% or 5% of your audience in case it's a bad choice. So here's some stats. 10 years ago, Amazon found that every 100 milliseconds of latency cost them 1% in sales. It is old data, but it's still relevant. It's a good reason to test, and you can imagine how much money that is for Amazon. Google found that 0.5 seconds extra in the search page dropped traffic by 20%. So you can imagine Google hasn't got much on the search page at the moment, and that's kind of the reason why. And the average website conversion rate is 2.35%. So every time we talk about conversion rates, people say, what's a good one? What should I be aiming for? But you don't want to just look at averages really in that broader fashion. You really want to look at your industry and stuff like that. But the best websites have conversion rates of 11%. So if you're a real go-getter, aim for that. I would say that's quite a lot, and it would be specific types of websites that have that. Again, averages are not always good. So mobile conversion rate is 1.53%, and desktop is 4.14%. So you can see you'd expect different results on different devices, and the average for all websites would be different because it combines the two of them. And that's me. How did I do on time? Oh, I did it a bit quick. Does anybody have any questions? Gary does. How does it affect your existing events and page views? So events you can use with Google Optimize. It's a bit more than I wanted to cover here. I just wanted to do an introduction. But you can actually trigger optimizations on the events. So you can push things into your data layer, and then you can say, based on whatever goes into the data layer, take some action. And your existing page views, I've got to be honest, I don't know, but you would find it in your Google Analytics. I think you find it under campaigns, and you see the optimization there. Ordinary analytics metrics. Well, to be honest with you, I don't know the answer, Gary, but it's worth looking into, I'm sure. But what you'd be always trying to do is improve those metrics. So you might not run the test forever, but you would just compare one against the other. So if I go back to the one that's running, it's only been running a few days, or a day maybe. I think maybe I set it up yesterday just for the purpose of this. here you go. You'll see some stats, but it's only been running a day, so not a lot. So there you go. You see 6 sessions, and it will show you because it's not been running long. It won't show you much, but it will show you the modeled conversion rate, and it will give you like a percentage accuracy. So if you've been running it for say 3 months, this would be much more accurate, and you would hopefully be able to see one way or the other. I'm sure when I'm just switching the footer contact form round, I'm sure it wouldn't be that much of a big difference. I mean, you can only find out when we see the stats, but this allows you to make your decisions based on data. And once you've got it right for one customer, you should test it again for the next customer. And if it's the same, then you can start becoming more confident in your decisions for all of your customers. And really, that's where you get the good returns by finding data across multiple sites that is relevant on all of them would be helpful. But it also means that you can offer your clients an upgrade. We found out that this really helps conversion rates on another site which is similar to yours. Would you like us to do that for you? Here's how much it will cost. So you can go back to your client with data saying, we've proved that this works, this is worth doing, and here's why, and here's how much it's going to cost you, but we think you could be making this much more money, so it's totally worth doing. They will thank you for the information. They will almost certainly pay you because you're going to make them more money. You already know how to do it, so you don't necessarily have to charge an arm and a leg if you don't want to. And you're adding value to your customer. So they're much less likely to hear of this other web developer using WordPress or whatever and think, oh, that must be wonderful because everyone talks about it. They're probably going to say, actually, our guy's great, or our girl is great because they're giving us all of this data and they're proving to us that it works. And then they go away and test it on our site, come back and show us the results and prove that it works again. So it's a really good way for you to, really stay in touch with your customers on a regular basis, have some sort of monthly ongoing commitment, and, just keep the customer loyalty there.
Oh, I think you see that question from Dorothy, right? About
yes. So if I go to
let me read the question so that
Sure.
people watching later can understand what you're answering. The question from Dorothy is, going back to your Joomla site, does this mean that you have both variants set up simultaneously, or are those totally controlled by Optimize?
No, they are set up simultaneously. So you can see this is the normal one, and this is home 2. So that was just, as I said, duplicated the menu item, and then really easy to do in something like Gantry or UTheme or whatever it is you're using. It won't work while the Optimize is running. But
so individuals could also pick which menu item they're going that would appear on the menu.
Well, it's not on the menu. I've hidden it. So home 2 is
okay,
not on
that
the
was
menu.
the question, I guess.
Yeah. So, but they could potentially find this. You would obviously try and hide it from Google in your menu options. Set it to no robots follow or whatever.
I see.
They could potentially find it, but I don't. Hopefully, most people come to the normal menu, normal home menu, and then that's when Google Optimize kicks in and says, "Shall I show them this version or this version?" And depending on the percentage, it'll pick that.
Okay, question from Gary. I'm just wondering whether the different traffic is only picked up by Optimize and that it is merged traffic for analytics. Your trigger does fire before analytics, but you said you could use analytics goals too?
Well, it has to fire before analytics, or else you get a page view on home and then another page view on home 2. So it fires before it to sort that problem out. But yes, you do use the Google Analytics goals to track it. I think you can set other goals. You can use JavaScript and stuff to create goals if you want, but Google Analytics is a really easy way to do it, and a really easy way to show this tutorial, because I could show based on a thank you page, destination page. That's when it triggers the conversion, basically. But yeah, if you want to get more complicated, I think there's an API as well. So, and you can run it server side as well, I believe. So you can actually set it up before any of that stuff happens. I don't think the traffic is only picked up by Optimize. I think it's picked up by both. And I think, let's see if my analytics will open. I think I can show you where to find it. I hope anyway, but if we go in here, I think we're looking at, here, experiments. So it'll probably be there, I think. So there you go. You can see it's running there. So you can also get the data this way if you wanted to. Obviously, you can check different data on this, location and all sorts of things like that. Were there any other questions?
Yeah, one from Rachel. Should you set up the site connection to analytics with the regular Google Analytics tracking code, or should it be done through Tag Manager?
I do it through Tag Manager. You don't have to do it, but if you do that and there's an update on Google Analytics, it makes it kind of easier to push it. And also, I got everything running in one tag. So instead of loading a JavaScript file from Google Analytics and also a Google Tag Manager or Google Optimize, Google Tag Manager sends Optimize and Analytics as one request. So it's not as relevant now as it used to be because browsers pick up more than, there used to be 3 requests and it used to be a problem. Now with HTTPS2, they're sort of doing things at the same time. So it's not as relevant, but it's still one less request. So it is a bit of an optimization. So you don't have to do it that way, but I would if I were you.
Awesome. Thanks, Owen. You had quite a few questions and a lot of interest there. That was something that I think you told me fairly recently. There was new, and it kind of had improved a lot recently, that this optimized tool had been improving and adding new features. And I think it's something that all of us could benefit
from. They have. And actually one thing I forgot to cover, which I should do really, is there's an editor. Let me just show you this test, for example. This one was on my own website just to change the color of the contact form. I've already got it running. Let me do a different one then. Do this draft one. So what you can do is you can click this edit button and it takes you through to the editor. I haven't created a home to, so that won't work. Wait a second. I just changed this to home. So the editor's kind of dangerous. That's why I'm going to show you it. Don't let it put you off, but do be aware of the dangers of it. So if you have, say for example, I've got here this title, for example. Say I decide to change the size of it. The problem that will happen is if one day I go in the back end of Joomla and I change this particular portfolio item, the optimize experiment will have cached it because it will be trying to change the size of it, and it will have, it will be holding on to the original. So that caused me a big problem on a live site once, where they were updating jobs on a daily basis, putting 3 or 4 new jobs that people could apply for, and it was showing the old jobs from like a month ago. It took me ages to work it out, but it was actually because I changed like one of the divs or something. So you need to be careful with the editor. And this experiment, what I've done is I've changed the footer form here. I changed the color of it, and all I did was click on this and CSS and then stick my CSS in there. So in that sense, I didn't need to add CSS to Joomla in any place. I just add it here, and on the variable experiment, the contact form had a different background color. So just be very careful about how specific you are and don't target too many things or whatever. But it gives you an option to do kind of a more generic test like that. But it will still only be on this page, so it's not site-wide. So that's the next step, is to try and make it site-wide. It's a bit more complicated, so I didn't cover it here.
I've played with a similar tool with Optimizely, and that used to be affordable and is now enterprise level, thousands of dollars a month.
Optimizely is great though. It's much more powerful than this tool, but this is free. So, if you can't afford Optimizely, then this is the one. There are other great tools out there as well. And Google Optimize is definitely not one I'd consider one of the strongest, but it's free and you can use it. It integrates nicely with analytics. And, if you're, on a budget and you're trying to add value to your customers, this is a good option.
Awesome. So if I get a customer come to me and have an unlimited budget, which one would you choose?
You should send them to me.
Choose Square Balloon.
If they have an unlimited budget, I would not choose Google Optimize. I don't really have a recommendation because this is what I use. But I know there are definitely better options out there. This isn't like the mainstay of my company really, but it's something that I'm moving into because I know it adds so much value. And I know there's been so many tests. Amazon ran a test years ago saying which color buttons should I have for buy now, and they found that orange was selling more than all the other colors, so they changed all the buttons to orange. So you think things like that are sort of trivial and don't matter, but they actually might matter. So it's worth testing things like that. And I've seen sites where they're absolutely hideous. It's like there's been a design mistake. Something just stands out like a sore thumb. It's the wrong color, it's the wrong font and everything. But actually it converts quite a lot better because it stands out so well. So it's worth thinking outside the box a little bit if you can.
A question from Morton, which I think you've answered. With the Optimize editor, this means you don't have to create 2 copies of the content inside Joomla. You can just use this Optimize editor to make it look as if you have 2 copies.
Yeah, you can. But so that's the bit where you have to be really careful. So this is the bit where, if somebody updates something in the back end and you've edited it in the front end, it will only update on one of the versions, not the variable version. So as I was saying, if I change this and I change the font, it will only change in one place, and the sort of dynamic part of Joomla stops working. So if you are running anything like a blog which is constantly posting, be very careful. If you're running a shop or anything like that, be very careful. So in those instances, I probably would prefer to do a redirect and change it in Joomla so that you're not breaking anything, basically. So the A/B test would be better in that situation. It doesn't have to be A/B. You can do ABN, so you can have like loads more versions if you want. You can have as many as you want. It gets a bit laborious if you're trying to add every single page in Joomla, so I wouldn't advise that.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Eoin.
Cool.
Gary is in the chat saying, I think this provides awesome insight into the improvements that are possible.
Yeah, there's so much to do, and it's all about being creative with it, thinking about what experiments you can run. There's loads of examples on online of the big companies are always running experiments. Amazon, in fact, is it Amazon? Yeah, I think it's Amazon. Anybody in the company can run an experiment, even the secretary. They've got a tool which allows them to run an experiment. Obviously, it won't be on the main site with millions of people, but anybody there can write an experiment, and if it works, then they integrate it. And there's been some great stories around things like that. So it's something that Amazon thinks is important and has been doing for years and spending money on. We should be doing it too. And there's no reason we can't when we've got free tools like this.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much indeed, Eoin.
Cool. Thanks for having me. Thanks to everyone who turned up.